the thing you have to think about is, how does this note relate to the other notes that I've already taken? All right, in this video, what I wanted to do is show you how I start a new study of the Bible on its own and how I build up my routine of studying the Bible. A little bit ago, I just did a live stream of this, and I want to condense it to something a little bit quicker than otherwise. But before we jump into this, I just want to say thank you to everybody who signs up and who's interested about learning to study the Bible and using org Rome or Emacs or some version of the Zettelkasten system to do this. It's really been fun to explore these ideas and just do it. I have a fun time doing it. So let's do it. I decided to choose the book of Genesis as my sort of like, here's how I would start doing it. And the reason why I chose Genesis is because I'm going to be studying it here pretty soon for a class I'm going to teach in about a half a year now, I believe. And so I just wanted to do a couple of videos on how to just begin to study a section. So let's jump in. So here's my section of the Bible here that I have. And I have this note inside of all of my notes called Genesis Hub. And the reason why I call it a hub is because this is where all of my notes about the book of Genesis as I'm studying it go. So here's a simple note. Now, what I want to do is I want to create a concept map, a section of notes that I can refer back to as I'm studying. I'm using Emacs and I'm using org Rome to do this, but you don't have to do this. You can do this with Obsidian. You can do this with a program called Zedler. You can use this with a program. You can use this with like just about any text editors like Atom or Sublime. I believe you can set them all up to do this. And most of the applications aren't going to work out of the box, but the two of them that I know of at least, and one of them is Zedler. I talked about that. The other one is Obsidian. Those both are free to use, and I believe that they are on Mac, PC, and Linux as well, because I use Linux, so it's good. And they work with Markdown files, and most, those are going to be all over. There's going to be a bunch of Markdown reading iOS apps and Android apps, so you don't have to worry about, I can't use this on my phone or whatever. But there's always a way around that. But I use this because Emacs, just because I really, really enjoy all the different things you get to do inside it. So it's not just what I'm doing here, but other things that I do, like making presentations and writing and all that kind of stuff. So right now, here's what we're going to do. All right, so what you want to do is you're going to find your particular book you want to study, start setting up your hub notes. So what you start to do is you hit space, and then you have, this is for people who use org-Rome. You just want to make some different headings. So some of the headings that I'm going to use are themes. Like every book of the Bible has a different level of themes. In org-Rome, you can just hit Control-Enter, and it makes a new heading. If it's marked down, it's just a hashtag space and then your first level heading. So I got my themes. What I want to do is maybe key terms. Those are the ones I want to check out. And then I probably want to check out, I'll probably do one on commentary. And those will be notes on the particular commentaries that I have. So those are the ones that I have up right now. Oh, yes. And then you want to make sure you want to have like questions about the book. So this section, so I'll go through each of these. All right. So each book just any book that you read typically is going to have different themes in it. So you want to notice that. You want to note those out. You want to figure out what those themes are as you're studying the book, or even before you study it. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll go onto different websites. I'll just like Google, or I don't use Google, but DuckDuckGo. Let's see, themes in the themes in the book of Genesis. And I might get some themes like, firsts, because Genesis means beginning. First, you want to see all the different types of themes that would come up. So I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head, and I can't, because that's what happens when you're making a video. You just can't think of things. But you'll get your different themes here. So, I'll have a theme. We'll call it firsts. A theme of I don't know, let's say judgment is a theme in the book. And then let's do one more as a theme of deliverance. So those are the different themes that I want to have in the book. All right. And then what I'll do now is that each of these notes, and I'm doing this just for the sake of the video, I'm not going to actually fill out all of these here, but each of these headings simply become a note that they can be linked to. So with org roam, and I believe some of the other things too, is that you can just, insert a note, and the way to do that, we just space NRI, and I'll insert a note or I'll link a note here called firsts. Now I don't have a note like that, so it's going to ask me, hey, you want to make a new note? And I just say, yeah, sure, finish. So I've got a note there, and I realize that I guess first just looks like a funny word. I don't know about you guys, but every time I find like a word that I read, I'm like, I don't know if that's how you spell that word, but firsts is definitely a word, and that's how you spell it. Space NRI, make a new one called judgment. And you know what? I'm going to actually add a little bit here. I'm going to put in like Genesis, comma, judgment, or dash judgment, because the word judgment, it's like this huge topic. And so you want to be able to, define that a little bit better there. So there we go. Genesis, judgment. And then last one here. I want to do, oops, come on. Deliverance, and we'll go. All right, so I've got my three different notes there. And so they have an underline with them now. And so if I hit it, I go to that actual note, which is really nice. So that's, now I have these notes set up to where I can find them quickly inside my hub note when I get to it. But I know you want to set up some key terms. So let's figure out some key terms. I know one that I'm thinking of right now is C. There's a middle one or a third one here. C, take. Maybe like C, want, take. And this happens a bit. So like, I believe whenever Eve sees the garden of the fruit from the forbidden tree, she sees it, she wants it, she takes it, and that's a thing that happens to the rest of the section here. All right, let's through the rest of the whole book there. So see, want, take, that's a good key term there. Let's see, think of another key term that's throughout the book of Genesis. I could put generations because that happens several times, the Toledot, I think is what they're called. But that doesn't seem very interesting as of right now. I'm thinking through this. So why don't I take a pause, and I'm going to go look up some different themes as well as key terms, and I'll come back and we'll keep going. I got some more I wanted to add to, and it's like funny whenever you're like trying to think on that feet, you're like, I don't remember anything about the book of Genesis, but then after just a little bit of study, and you're like, oh yeah, of course, covenant, sin, blessing, sacrifice. Those are all, of course, things in the book of Genesis that we should record. So what I'm doing right now is just highlighting I'm highlighting each of these, inserting a note, but actually creating a note. So now this becomes a whole note in and of itself. So that blessing there is a whole note. Sin, that's a whole note. And then covenant, that's a whole note. And I could do that with the key terms or whatever, and then I could do that as well. So commentary as well. Instead of commentary, I'll show you this once I get to the beginning of like studying stuff. But instead of commentary, what I'll do is actually have the structure of the book as well. That's really important in understanding any book, particularly the book of Genesis, because you definitely have a unique way of writing in the first 11 chapters, and then chapter 12 at the end of the book is very different in covering the different patriarchs. So that's something, but even inside of each of the patriarch stories, you have their own structure as well. That's worth knowing and kind of finding those contours, because what is helpful in these kind of stories is repetition and style. And as you see those things kind of develop, it really helps these things come alive. And then you can actually begin to think about, oh, that was chapter whatever, and then that was chapter whatever. And you get a much better grasp on it once you get the structure of the book. All right, and then questions about the book. So you're studying the book. What questions do you have about whatever book you're studying? So for me right now, thinking about the book of Genesis, one of the things I'm thinking about is how does chapter 1 relate to the rest of the book? So I'll write that out. So chapter 1 and 2, oops, oh boy. Chapter 1 and 2 are clearly like their own thing, even besides 1 through 11, because they are the story of creation, and it's two accounts of creation from two different perspectives, and that's huge. So, like, how does that relate to the rest of the book? Well, I want to explore that when I study the book of Genesis, because that's really important. And a lot of times the beginning of the book is super important, the middle of the book is very important, and the end of the book is very important. So you want to watch those develop as you're studying. So yes, that question, right? How does this? And I'm not going to link this to any question. I'm just going to have this here and let it hang out there as I'm studying. So next, what I will do is I will open up another window. And I know in Obsidian, which I really like Obsidian for this, you can actually do the same thing I'm about to do as far as just divide it up, make two different windows. So I have two sides here. I can go to this side and I can go to this side as well. And why don't I just go ahead and do this for everyone here? And what this is going to allow, what this will allow me to do is that you should now be able to see all of my different keystrokes. We'll see. Nope. There. Maybe that'll work. Who knows? All right, so let's go to Genesis chapter 1. All right. There it goes. There. Now it's working. I'm going to shrink that a bit. So most of the time, people on desktop, you should be able to read that still. We'll see. Maybe I'll give myself a little bit of extra room here. All right, yeah. So sometimes the stuff it shows you isn't very helpful. But let's begin with Genesis chapter 1. So Genesis 1. And the Web Bible begins with the first book of Moses, commonly called Genesis. And I just wanted to say Genesis. So there it is, and I save it, and that's what it looks like now. Now, as you can tell, I already have a couple of my own notes here already, and we'll leave those there. So, all right, as I'm studying this, what I will do is I will think about, all right, I've got my key terms in my head. I've got my themes right there as well, like I can refer back to, and I begin to create things. So actually, I may go to chapter 3 because some of my notes here don't go very well to do that. But actually, you know what? Let's go back to chapter 1. So as I'm studying, I can do things like make some headings. And I got my heading there. I'm not going to do this for all of them right now. But you get the idea. I'm making my different headings. And I know in this text, there is something besides just the significant themes I've got. There's actually something else I've been thinking about a lot lately, and that is the way God creates. So obviously, verse 1, we have I can actually highlight this because it'll help think through this. All right. So God creates. I forget how this is in Hebrew, or else I'd quote it for you and sound really fancy. Something Barashit Barashim. Yeah, I forget the rest of it. Tov Ha'eretz. I know that's the earth. Ha'eretz. Anyways, so you begin with that. And then I know the Hebrew for formless and void is what that is, because it's a funny phrase there. Tovu vavohu. But this word here, created, or bara in the Hebrew, is something that's a theme in the book of, did I have create? Yeah, I have create right there. It's a theme here. So what I would do is I would go to this and I would create, this is how I make notes inside my text, is I just have a asterisk and then, I don't have that note saved. What happens sometimes in org Rome is that you have to like wait a second and let the thing be idle, and then it goes through your database and locks everything up and goes, oh, okay, so you're taking a break here, so we'll make some of this happen. Oh wait, you know what? I haven't even created the note here, so let's just go ahead and do this. Highlight this, create a note. We'll call Genesis creation. Hit enter, and then okay, whatever. And then I'll just go in and like this. And all right, now I give it a second. It's going to create that. It's going to link into the database so I can access it through the space NR. Yeah, space NRF. Whoops, come on. There it is. Creation Genesis. Awesome. All right, let's move over to this guy here. Space NRI. All right, there's my create. Or I got to highlight it first. Hit V to highlight. Space NRI. And then backspace it. And then just go, creation right there. Boom. All right. I didn't do it. Or maybe it did. Yeah, it did. So the problem is that because this is already highlighted stylistically here, I am going to change some of it. There we go. All right, so now there it is. There's my note there, created. Looks like that. I'm going to change my theme because I typically use the henna theme. Yeah, much better. Because I have my note there is this good orange color, so it's good for me. All right, so I've got created there. So now all this does is it links to that note there on the left, but I want to add to some of this, and I would just add some sort of like, what do I already know about God, creation, and Genesis that I could add to this part here? So, all right, so right there, not very fancy right here, because I'm just beginning. I'm just beginning this study. So I know, or at least I'm going to test that this word create is something pretty important to the rest of the book. I kind of think it is because I've studied the book of Genesis a number of times, and there is something there, okay? And I want to make sure note of that. So, all right, I've got it linked there, but I also want to make I want to make an extra link here, or I want to list in my note about creation in Genesis the sections in which this is mentioned. So I would create a note here, and I'd call it Genesis 1, 1, 1, clearly. God creates the heavens and the earth. All right, so there's my note. Well, there's my note, but now I'm going to make a link to that same one there. One, and hit enter. All right, so there's my note. And now I have a sweet note there. All right, good. So that's kind of the beginning of how this works. Is that okay? I have my, let's flip back this open. And I would try to keep my themes list open as I'm studying to kind of go back and forth. Okay, I'm looking at this section here. Does that have anything to do with it? Okay, no. And then keep going from there. Then what I'll do next is I'll start to make a commentary on the thing. So commentary is not like I'll have some grand idea that, oh, one day these are going to be some great commentaries for people to read. No, this is my own personal commentary that'll help me whenever I'm doing something with this text or whatever ideas I might have with it right now. And I want to always test those and see if I can make them better or if I need to get rid of ideas that I don't like or that aren't correct. But what do I got so far? So right here, what I would do is first day, I would go space NRI. I would create a note and I'll just call it Genesis. I'll like reference the text that I'm doing 1 and we'll go 5 through 3. And then I'll go, all right, so I'll just go the first day. That seems like a good note name. The first day. And I'll hit save. All right, now I got to do this. So let's go back here. Oh. All right, so something messed up there. I'm going to go back and create this note. So there's my note here. And at right here, I use this to create links. I just do hashtag Genesis. And that's like, so this is kind of going farther here as far as how to create notes. But so the different type of notes here, you've probably seen this already, but you have your actual hard links, which are just actual hyperlinks, like, you know, these links here. This asterisk is just a hard link here. But then you have your hub note, which is its own kind of note link type thing where all of them are created. And then you have tags. And tags are notes that will just show up. So you got you got a bunch of notes that are tagged Genesis. Well, what other notes do I have that are tagged Genesis? I don't think I have any, but let's say I did. To find those notes that are also tagged Genesis, I open up Genesis, I hit this hashtag Genesis, I hit space NRR. That opens up the org backlink. So I know that there's only one note here right now that I have that has this hashtag Genesis, and that's the one I was just looking at. So if I click this, it just goes to here. So not very helpful at this point, but could be later on in the future where I have several notes tagged to this Genesis. So the idea behind this whole thing is that you want to make sure that you are creating a bunch of different links to different notes and creating a network of notes, not a structure of notes, but a network of notes. So that way, as you're studying, you're going to find these connections that you didn't realize were connections, and you're going to make these really cool insights you didn't have otherwise. At least that's the plan. I believe that's how this works, and that's what Nicholas Luhmann said about his own Zettelkasten system. One of his researchers, Johannes Schmidt, said that he called that the fabrication of serendipity, which is a really fancy term there. You know, of course, all academics talk like that. So the fabrication of serendipity. So you're creating a system that has all of these notes, so that at some point you're going to have this critical mass of notes and links and texts and whatever. And then all of a sudden, hey, here's some cool ideas that relate to one another. And I've already linked them. I just didn't know they linked together. And that's where the magic begins to happen when it comes to these Zettelkasten systems. So let's go back to Genesis chapter 1 here. Yeah, there we go. And I've got that there. I've got that. And so first day commentary. All right, so the first thing I would do back at the commentary set is I could create an overall structure to the book of Genesis, but that just is not going to be very helpful, I don't think. So here's what I would do instead. for right now. Now, maybe I already have a good structure of the book of Genesis. I do know that this first section is typically called primeval history. So inside of that, I would make a note called Genesis or 1. Yeah, I would make a chapter 1. So that would be my first note there. And then I would go to another note. And I would go 1. I would go 3 through 5. The first day. Now I would link this note back to the other note that I have called Genesis the first day. And there we go. So not only do I have so that links to this note here. That's where this goes to. So those are the type of notes that I create. So 1, I make, let's go back to, this is a good spot. So 1, I make my notes to my hub note to make sure that that's populated with all the links that I'm creating. 2, I make sure that the notes are actually inside the text itself, because that's where I'll probably have both of these open. Like the next time I come back to study Genesis, like what am I going to look at first? And that is going to be the hub section as well as the actual text itself. And so I'm going to link all my notes there. Now, one last thing before we head out of this video, you have something you want to say that's not just inside your themes, your key terms, or Genesis, or something beyond that's just in here. You want to even have a section for that, but I won't make a section for right now. And the one that I wanted to do is, this word here, divide. And I will note, this word divide here is definitely one of the major themes of this Genesis account. And that is division and then calling. And I've been thinking a lot about these terms and how they relate to one another. But here's the way God does Genesis chapter 1. He creates verse 1. And then there is verse 2, which is like the chaos of the formless and voidness of the world. But then how does God do the rest of, it's not necessarily creating because it's already there, but yes, there's a sense of creating. So God creates. But then he says, let these things divide from these things. And so the God creates a division of things. And then after he makes this division, he calls one thing the other, one thing, and then one thing the other thing. So day 1, he divides the light, he calls the light out. And then he divides from the light to the darkness, and he calls the light day, the darkness he calls night. Well, chapter 2, or second day, he did the same thing. God says, let the expanse of the middle of the waters, let it divide the waters from the waters. All right, so God God divides the waters from the waters, verse 8, and then he says he calls the expanse, he calls it the sky. So he's division and then calling. Verse 9, to go to chapter day 3, he divides the land from the water. And what does he do? He calls the land earth, and then he calls the sea, waters, he calls sea. So there's another division there. And so God then, he does that through, it's this division there through the first 3 days at least of things. And then I think there's something to be said about him dividing and calling and naming. And then he gets to man, he does the exact same thing where he tells man then now to include in this naming and division thing. That's not all there is to say about that note. I haven't written that down yet to talk about it much, but that's something I've been bubbling in the back of my head, and I believe that relates to the priesthood and how the priesthood were called to name things and divide things. And that whole general thing about us as human beings as being people who discern life and wisdom and the will of the Lord. And there's a huge idea in there, obviously, but I haven't untangled it all yet. But what's awesome about the Zettelkasten Bible note, whatever you want to call this, is that I now have a way to untangle those crazy complex ideas I may or may not have. Maybe they're not very complex. Maybe it's something, it's a pretty simple idea. But it allows me to create notes in such a way that not only can I talk about this idea of discernment and creation and division and stuff, not just here, but also in a bunch of other places as I link to this idea. Because one of the things you have to get as you're doing this is that whenever you create a note, the thing you have to think about is, how does this note relate to the other notes that I've already taken? Because if you're not doing that, you're not doing this system properly, because this system relies on you putting in something new and then collecting it and adding to something completely different. Not completely different, but different. And then how does it connect to what you've already said before? Because there's, so that's how you do it. So that's how I begin to study a book of the Bible. And I divide it, I take notes, and you kind of see the process that I've got here as far as how I'm connecting these themes to what's in here. And eventually, let's look at one of the books I've already been working with. Whoa. Okay. Let's go to, whoa, come on. Let's go Mark chapter 3. I've been messing around with Mark lately. So, see, look at this here. All right, so you've got my commentary notes that are up there, and then that links to my commentary that I have here. So I'll also open up Mark chapter 1 here, or Mark Hub. There. So here's the themes I have for Mark. Here's not really the commentary, but I'm going to do a class teaching on the miracles of the Gospel of Mark, so I've been lining those up. But for now, here's the themes that I have. I don't have any key terms, although I probably should make some key terms because it's pretty helpful. But then I have the commentary, which is right here. So if I click this, I'll know my commentary on this particular section. And then I have something else here, which is not a note that's related to these, although actually it is, against the religious leaders. So I should probably link that there. This is a really interesting point in the Gospel of Mark. I haven't linked it yet, so let's link this here. All right, cool. So this moment here with Jesus calling the man out, or asking the man with the withered hand to come forward, and he heals it in front of the Pharisees and calls them out for being duplicitous and not respecting God's ways. So here's a good moment for us to look at. So I got that note there about all of that. And that's part of the against the religious leaders note. So commentary, particular notes there, and then there's some other things that I do as well. Like I make cities, hashtags. So like Capernaum here, this is a hashtag. So now the next time I'm reading the Bible, and I find the word Capernaum, I'm going to just link it to this hashtag. So that way I only have one note, I believe, here. But actually, no, I've got a few. So I've got a few other places where this Capernaum happens. So I've got it in an actual note, but then I have it in Mark chapter 1. He goes into Capernaum. Mark chapter 2, he goes into Capernaum again. So that's really helpful, especially when you're looking at a text like Mark or Luke or even Acts, really, where people are just traveling a bunch of different places. And then at some point, I might go, okay, what is important about Capernaum that I should know when I see it? And I might talk about, it's a seaport, or a lot of times it's called like the home base of Jesus. So that's a good one to see there. So that's how I take notes as I'm studying. It's a really helpful way for me to keep track of things. And if you have some ideas that you use whenever you're using the Zettelkasten system for maybe not even the Bible, but something else that's really helpful for you, I would love to know. I'm still feel like I'm just getting my grasp of how this thing works. And so let me know, and I would love to hear that. Be sure to mention in the comments. Share this with your nerdy friends who like this sort of thing, and be sure to like this video as well. And subscribe too. I'm going to do more videos like this as well. So I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.